Dropa has all the elements of a great science fiction story. Crashed UFOs, mysterious missing skeletons, and stone discs that are said to hold otherworldly secrets. If the account is true, extraterrestrials landed in China 12,000 years ago. Those who believe call it China's Roswell.
You can compare these two stories, the Roswell UFO crash in 1947 and the Chinese Roswell that probably happened 12,000 years ago. You have probably alien spacecraft that has crash landed in an area. You have bodies that look similar. In both cases you have little people with big clumsy heads and very tiny bones, very tiny skeleton. And as well, the proof of those crash landings has disappeared. And then the story went on and on and on through all the magazines, books, the internet.
The story and the way it was covered bear striking similarities to the alleged alien crash site at Roswell, New Mexico.
The Roswell incident really begins in the late 1970s when a documentary film about Roswell and other UFOs called UFOs Are Real was picked up by the National Enquirer.
It is true that in 1978 there were stories in the National Enquirer that discussed Roswell, and that this was one of the major ways that the story got its rebirth.
And then you saw articles and television films about it and more books and more books. Then that's when the eyewitnesses started to come out of the woodwork and tell their story. That's when the Roswell incident really starts.
Some UFO researchers agree that coverage in the tabloids seriously diminishes the believability and credibility of both the Roswell and Dropa accounts.
It's been a real hindrance, and it's unfortunate.
Aside from being nearly impossible to find, the Dropa magazine sources have proven equally problematic, but for a variety of reasons.
We are told that the original source for this was the Soviet magazine known as Sputnik. There was a German publication, Vegetarian Universe, from July of 1962. There is apparently also a Belgian UFO publication, but they also had an account of this in 1962. These were very sensationalistic magazines, sort of equivalents of the Star or the Enquirer and things like this. And who in Vegetarian Universe knew Chinese?
The tabloid articles about Roswell and Dropa are just one of several similarities. For some, the parallels run much deeper. A government conspiracy. In the minds of ufologists, cover-up is another aspect that both Dropa and Roswell have in common. They often believe that the governments of the US and China are hiding extraterrestrial technology and alien bodies. Moreover, they claim Chinese officials have tried to hide a race of human-alien hybrids.
There are a lot of instances in which the Chinese government acts in such a way as to prevent itself from being embarrassed.
It's not just government restriction that keeps tourists out of certain areas in western China. The land itself is vast, isolated, and often inhospitable.
The Bayan Karaula is a mountain range in the Qinghai province in central China. It is as big as the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, with mountains ranging up until 20,000 feet. And in this area is only one major road crossing through. In the Bayan Karaula mountain range are people who have every day their fight against nature.
People are primarily herders. They raise a variety of different kinds of animals, horses, goats, sheep.
But there are those who believe this rustic setting holds a dark secret. A legendary village of dwarves. Hausdorff argues that a race of human-alien hybrids may live in a Chinese village called Weilong. Like Roswell, those who subscribe to the Dropa story think the Chinese government could be hiding extraterrestrials who crash-landed on Earth.
But the difference to Roswell, New Mexico is that in China, probably 12,000 years ago, some of them did survive. And the next question is, when there were survivors, could they still exist in our days? Not the survivors themselves, but their descendants, generations and generations after.
Hausdorff says that the small-statured residents of Huilong may be the hybrid offspring of local humans and the marooned Dropa.
There are press allegations that there were remarkably short people, apparently, that living in that part of China.
The Chinese government alleges that what has led to their dwarfism is the existence of contaminants in the environment.
The theory was supported by a study conducted by the Chinese Academy of Science, which found toxins in the water supply. The results were widely published around the world.
The environmental pollution is extreme in many, many parts of China.
The water was adequately treated, and according to press accounts in 1997, no new cases of dwarfism have been reported since. Could the little people of Huilong have inspired the entire Dropa story? The mystery gets even more intriguing with the discovery of a journal written under the name of Dr. Carol Robin Evans, a British explorer. In 1978, author David Agamon posthumously published the travel diary of Robin Evans as a book titled Sun Gods in Exile.
And this book described a journey to the Dropa region that Evans had allegedly made, where he encountered these dwarf-like people who said to him that they had ancestors who came from the stars.
In 1947, English scientist Dr. Carl Robin Evans goes into the border of Tibet and China at the actual site, and he studies the local language of the current Dropa people.
Actually, the book Sun Gods in Exile reads like a true story, and it's very thrilling. It's about those people coming through space with a spacecraft and crash landed here on Earth.
It turns out that there's no evidence that there was a Dr. Carol Robin Evans. No one can find this person or confirm that this person existed. David Agamon does exist, or did exist, and from what I understand, claimed that in later years that this was his own hoax, or that he made up the name of Dr. Carol Robin Evans.
In the April 1998 edition of the popular British magazine Fortean Times, David Agamon did indeed admit that Sun Gods in Exile was a work of fiction.
This book is a complete hoax, and in later years, David Agamon told the whole world, yes, this book is a hoax.
Still, believers remain undaunted.
I'm convinced there's a truth behind the stone disc story, but I know the book Sun Gods in Exile, it is a hoax.
Yet, like Roswell, the Dropa story continues to grow with time, and new evidence may have been discovered